Train to Busan is not a movie I would have watched on my own. When I first saw the film appear on Netflix, I honestly thought it was an action-based Netflix original, which is a genre that I don't really care for. However, my girlfriend absolutely adores Train to Busan, and she convinced me that I just had to check it out. And I'm certainly glad that I listened to her, because I ended up really loving that film. It was a surprisingly smart movie that was filled with exciting nonstop action and an unexpected amount of heart and genuine emotion. So, in an era where zombie films were kind of played out already, Train to Busan was really able to stand out and become one of the best zombie movies I've ever seen. So, of course, just like everyone else, I was really looking forward to Peninsula. I thought it was a great idea to have a story take place within the universe without actually serving as a direct sequel to the original film. And I thought a 4-year time gap was a brilliant way to show the audience how much this world has grown and changed. However, Peninsula is definitely an underwhelming experience compared to Train to Busan. The basic premise of the movie is this. A soldier named Jung-suk actively returns to the zombie wastelands of the Korean peninsula with a team of other people in hopes of retrieving some lost money that could potentially make them rich. Now, I do actually like the concept for this film. With most zombie movies, you don't get a really good sense of the geography. But in Peninsula, it's easy to understand that Korea is basically the only place that has experienced this zombie outbreak, and that the rest of the world has carried on relatively normally. Whether or not I actually believe that a zombie outbreak could just be contained in one region after witnessing the spread of a global pandemic in real life is up for debate, but I'm willing to suspend my disbelief here and just accept the premise. However, I thought it was interesting to see how characters reacted to people who have survived from this outbreak area. Someone like Jung-suk was met with animosity and irrational hatred just from being from the Korean Peninsula area. But it's not like he created the zombie outbreak or wanted to be forced to flee from his own home. He just wants to live. And that makes for some interesting real-world parallels, since at the start of the coronavirus pandemic, people were treating the Chinese population unjustly and unfairly just because the virus originated in China. But putting politics aside, I thought the premise for Peninsula sounded pretty engaging because instead of seeing the zombie apocalypse unravel around our main character, we got to witness Jung-suk willingly choose to go into and fight his way through a secluded zombie-infested area. Forcing the characters to go into the peninsula was a great way for the filmmakers to create tension and suspense, and the zombie scenes themselves all have a frenetic energy that the original Train to Busan had as well. So the whole thing has a Thunderdome vibe to it, which seems appropriate since Peninsula is a non-stop action fest that does feel like a cross between Mad Max and The Fast and the Furious. However, though Peninsula does feature some gripping action, everything else in the film fell rather flat. Whereas everything in Train to Busan felt fresh and original and unique, Peninsula feels very predictable, by the numbers, and cliché. So, effectively, everything I had feared that Train to Busan would be is exactly what Peninsula ended up being. A generic action-based film with not much to add to the zombie genre. And I really don't know what happened here since Peninsula is written and directed by the same guy. But the story of Peninsula is too predictable and way too sappy to enjoy. I could literally feel each and every time the movie was trying to manipulate me into having an emotional moment. The camera would focus on one character, the scene would start to incorporate slow motion, and the soundtrack would start to swell, drowning out the sound of everything else in the scene. But these moments weren't very effective. They felt very overdramatic, like they belonged more on a TV soap opera or melodrama. Now, Train to Busan does have a few scenes like this as well, but they work more efficiently because the movie actually takes the time to get you emotionally invested with the characters that are in those scenes. Peninsula, however, expects you to care about people that you don't even know yet. The movie even tries to open up on an overly sappy scene with characters that you just met, so you don't have the proper amount of time to become invested with certain characters. And even if you do find yourself caring for these strangers, you can't deny that the overly sentimental nature of these scenes makes the entire story feel telegraphed. You can always tell what's going to happen in any given scene before the scene ever finishes, so that is pretty disappointing. Plus, the characters all feel pretty thin. I can't tell you anything about Jung Suk's personality, or any other character in the film for that matter. Everyone gets one defining character trait and an awfully predictable character arc. The Peninsula characters just pale in comparison to the ones in Train to Busan. In fact, the only characters I found interesting were these two young girls, and that's only because I found it funny that the Gen Z characters who grew up in the zombie apocalypse didn't give a fuck about the zombies. The outbreak is normal to them, so spooky scary zombies don't even faze them. I just thought that was interesting. However, and this may be due to the fact that I'm just a big Resident Evil fan, but I'm not convinced that not even one global superpower wouldn't have even tried to nuke the shit out of the Korean peninsula. I get that there are some survivors living there, but seriously? Zombies are just roaming around in this area and nobody cares? The peninsula is supposed to be sealed off, but clearly there are people still getting in and out of the area, so the risk of just letting zombies roam around freely, secluded or not, seems really fucking risky to me. But whatever. So yeah, I was really disappointed with Peninsula. I wanted to like it, but it just doesn't come close to how good that original Train to Busan really is. And even as its own movie, judging it on its own merits, it's still an overly sappy film that is just too predictable to enjoy. And for that, I would likely give Peninsula 2.25 out of 5 stars. Thanks for watching.